Hey everybody, it's John Barrowman here, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends with Martin the Flash, Harley Quinn, and X-Force 11. Now you all may know me as playing Malcolm Merlin, and here's a little something for you. Every warrior must learn the simple truth that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
In 2016, a new TV show hit the digital airwaves and needed a podcast dedicated to chronicling its adventures. An elite team has been assembled for this task. Unfortunately, the world's listeners have not heard of this Wonder Twin duo. And although they may not be known now, in the future they will be referred to as Tomorrow's Legends.
Whew. Thank Thunderbolt he was able to put a crack in the weather so we could squeak through and get the ship back into the air and head back to the 1920s.
Yeah, good thing, but don't forget, we gotta make a stop in 2021 Atlanta and grab Harley.
Oh yeah! Gideon, plot a course to Atlanta 2021.
Right away, Captain.
Hey guys, thanks for picking me up.
Harley!
Oh man, look at this place. Jeez, I leave for a few months and you let it go to hell. Typical.
Do you have any idea of the missions we've been on? There's been no time for tidying up.
Right, missions. Probably hung out with Bayrod playing video games this whole time. But speaking of a mission, we gotta get to our legends back in 1925. Aren't they trapped there?
That's right, Gideon, you heard her. We have to go back to Texas.
And now, here are your hosts, the Scarlet Speedster himself, the Flash, the Maid of Mischief Harley Quinn, and the Blue Beacon of Hope, X-Force 11.
Hello, Legendaires. Whew, that crack in the sky didn't last long, but we managed to head back to the 1920s where we caught up with our Legends team, still stuck there. And I bet they think we're the ones that blew up their Wave Rider. Oh no! We didn't do that. Gideon, hurry, cloak the ship.
Yes, Captain.
Whew, okay, what a start to this new season. Welcome back to the Mother Show, Tomorrow's Legends, and welcome back to our one and only Harley. We are here for the Season 7 premiere, The Bullet Blondes. I am the Flash.
I'm Harley Quinn.
And I'm X-Force 11.
Hello, Legends.
And you know what? Just in case he's listening, because we're going to tag him on the show, let's say hello to John Barrowman and say thank you for that awesome intro that he recorded for us.
I know, that was so awesome to hear my name come out of his mouth. That was so cool.
That was pretty great. That's awesome that he was able to do that. I'm so glad he was nice enough to do that.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing to get to spend a little bit of time with him. So, John, if you are listening, even just to this opening bit, we just appreciate you so much, and thank you for being part of our show. Everybody here, all our fans, all our listeners, love you from Arrow and our Season 2 of Legends that we covered. We miss you. We would love to have you come back on the show. So there is some news. What you got here going on, X-Force?
Seems like we've got a lot of news about some casting and other stuff. I have posted in the Facebook group today a photo of Matt Ryan and his Dr. Gwen Davies outfit. I've got a link to the JSA comics I talked about in the last episode of Stargirl. And we've got some casting news about Superman and Lois. We've got one of the new teenagers who's been cast, so go and check out the group for all the news and all the scoop.
Yeah, cool. Good stuff. Our Facebook page is a great resource, guys, for news and photos and just lots of fun stuff that all our members share. So if you guys really want to get involved and catch everything that comes out, definitely go to our Facebook group because there's lots going on there usually. Now, we got to get to something.
Letters lost in the timeline.
Because this one truly was lost in the timeline. We got a voicemail from Rick Marshall, a friend of ours that every once in a while sends us a really nice detailed voice message with a lot of comic book background knowledge and everything. Mm-hmm. And he actually sent one in between the second last episode of Legends and before the finale, but he sent it in after we released our penultimate episode. and it got lost in the mix. I completely missed it. It got buried in the emails, and he actually responded or sent me another email and was, a little bit upset with the fact that we missed it. And I apologized, and I definitely swallowed that one because I'm the one that usually takes on all the emails. But I talked to him about it and explained the situation, and he seemed to understand. But I'm going to play his message here because he thinks that it really was relevant to the things that were going on in the last couple episodes, and he thought there might be a couple of good points that we could talk about. So I'm going to play it here, and then we'll see what we can discuss. Here he is.
Hey guys, this is Rick from Orlando. I haven't talked to you in a long time because, as I've mentioned before, I'm usually so late in watching the episodes that I can never get feedback in on time. But I wanted to send you this, even though it's late, some feedback on episode 13. I was really intrigued by some of the things you were talking about in your podcast about Constantine and what you think they're going to do with him. And you had the theory that perhaps he'll end up going inside the totem with Zari 2.0, and they'll just kind of live on in the totem, and maybe Zari 1.0 will come back into the world. The one problem I have with that is that I'm pretty sure that Legends lost the licensing rights to Constantine. I think they had rights to Constantine for a certain period of time, for a certain number of years, but I think they've now lost those rights, and that's the reason that Constantine's being written off the show, because he's actually going to another franchise. I think J.J. Abrams might be doing something with him. So because of that, I don't think they can just put Constantine in the totem. I don't think they can do anything outlandish. I think when you license a character like that, you kind of have to finish up with him the way you got him. So I think Constantine is probably going to leave the series as he came into the series. He's going to have magic. He's going to be a little bit shady. He's not going to be the nice good guy that we've kind of learned that he's become. So I don't think that you're going to see him going into the totem. I don't think they can legally do that. I think probably what's happened is now that we see this new evil Constantine, he's kind of got these split personalities. I think the sort of evil version that might be working with Bishop is the one we're going to see at the end of the series, who's going to leave the show. And again, I have not seen episodes 14 and 15, so I could be totally wrong about this. I think they really have to divest themselves of Constantine completely with no reference to him next season. So what might happen is they've got this good version of Constantine now. They've got sort of the split personalities, and maybe the good version will somehow get merged with this British scientists that they're going to introduce next year that Matt Ryan's going to be taking over. Maybe they'll somehow merge good Constantine with him, but I think Constantine is going to be totally done with the series after this year. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't think your theory about him going into the totem is correct. I don't think they're going to do that. Now, what might be interesting with respect to Zari, a lot of people like 1.0, a lot of people like 2.0. I wondered with Zari if they might just combine those two characters in sort of a 1.5, let's say, and with Constantine gone next year, maybe 1.5 will get together with Nate. There'll be enough of 1.0 in there to reestablish that relationship, and maybe that's how they're going to deal with the Zari situation. But the other thing I wanted to ask about, and this is a question I don't know the answer to, with respect to Ava. We've seen Ava as a clone for a number of years, and I can't remember if they ever really talked about her background in a lot of depth. I know we met her fake parents, but usually on most of these shows, when a clone is created, it's based on a real person, an actual person. Like Bishop, we presume there was a real Bishop at one point who was the basis for the series of clones that were created. Was there a real human Ava, and were all the clones based on her? And the Ava that we now know on the Wave Rider, who's a clone, was she based on an actual real person? Have they ever talked about that? Because it might be interesting at some point if, let's say, the original Ava died or something. I wonder if there might be a storyline where the Legends go back in time and maybe save the original Ava, and maybe somehow rewrite history so that all the clones never happen, and the original Ava gets together with Sarah, or maybe the original Sarah. I don't know whether they would go that far, but I'm just wondering if number one, have they ever addressed the question of who was the original Ava? Was she a real person? And then secondly, if they haven't, does that sound like it might be a storyline for next year? Anyway, I just wanted to get that feedback off to you. And I know, since I'm so late with this, that you've already done the episode 14 podcast. I'm pretty sure by the time you get this, your next podcast might even be the finale. So I apologize for getting this in late, but I just wanted to get those thoughts out to you because they occurred to me. All right, take care, guys. Talk to you later.
So, that actually is a very relevant point. I mean, asking about Ava, I don't think we ever found out about what she was based on, because he's right. You can't just create a person out of nothing. You have to have something that you're relating it to, something that you're building it from, And in most clone stories, it's always been because there's somebody that they love and they lost, or there's someone they have a crush on and they want to make their own version of it. Whatever. There's always been a basis for the clone. Do you guys recall if there is anything?
I mean, what we saw, the first clone that he was making, the first version, it didn't give us really any clue to who he was basing it on. So I don't remember anything beyond that.
No, I don't think they've definitively told us who she really is, or maybe whose. I mean, we know he was a genetic genius, so it's possible he spliced together several people's DNA to create her in the first place. I mean, she may truly be a creation because he's taken genome sequences from so many different people. That is another way to look at it.
That's a good possibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of even revisiting that story. I mean, I love the Ava clone storyline. It would be great to go back. I mean, his idea that if it was based on someone and we go back and find the real Ava and she has no idea that she was used for, as the basis for cloning, like it would just be so cool to see Jess McCallan get to play that out, as just a regular human being and has no idea what's going on. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I wonder if they'd really do that now, though, because it's not as integrated into the storyline. I don't know. Maybe they'll come back to it. We'll just have to see.
Yeah.
You're right, because they did kind of almost close the cloning story by the finale, because we, like X4 said, we saw the original first clone when she first woke up. So, yeah.
It kind of felt like it, especially when they introduced Bishop as her creator. So
Yeah.
But I like it.
But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I like his point. I'm curious to see how they're going to deal with why Dr. Davies looks like John. They can't. I noticed in this episode they were talking about John and not Constantine, and so I'm curious to see how they're going to actually deal with the fact that he looks like John. So I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if they would go as far as, like Rick was saying, to make the good side of John be a little bit in this guy or not. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with. Okay, why does this guy look like John?
I feel like they're going to go the Charlie route. They're going to just pretend that she doesn't look like her or whatever.
And it's just genetics, because we all have people that look like us, right? Like, oh, you look like so and so, you could be sisters. Maybe they're going to make him look different enough that he just looks like he's a distant relative or one of those, lookalikes.
Or I go to the Doctor Who route where you've got the spatial time doppelgangers, where you have characters who played other characters, and you're like, so even the 12th Doctor. So
that's true. But I mean, by now he's probably watched the finale, so he has his answers. He wasn't far off the mark he was actually really correct that they're not going to put John in the totem with Zari. But I liked his idea about a Zari 1.5. That's kind of fun.
That was a fun idea, yeah. They didn't go that route, but I did like that idea.
No.
That's kind of fun. So, how I'd like to finish this off is that, like I said, I talked to him behind the scenes and apologized for missing it. It was because of the timing of his email that came in, and I want to let everybody else know out there what happens. He has a special case because he is behind in watching the show, but for normal feedback, we have a deadline in there for a reason, because I get the feedback in for one show, and because we were covering a few shows at a time there, I get feedback all into the same email for all of the shows that we cover. Plus, we get hit with spam and marketing and what other emails come to our Tomorrow's Legends email. And if your email comes in late and it's not in time for the deadline, it gets buried. That's what and I actually have to sit there and sift through them to find which ones are feedback and which ones aren't. and human error will happen, and I will miss one. So whereas if the reason we have a deadline is if you get all the email in by the deadline, then I see all the fresh ones, the newest ones that come in that I know are supposed to be here before 7 o'clock on Thursday or Friday, whatever a deadline is. I can catch those right away because they're the newest ones in the list. And it just, so that's what happened, and that's why there's a deadline out there. But like Rick said to me, we have had our promise out there from the very beginning. We're going to include everybody's feedback, even if we have to sometimes truncate it if you send us a 25-paragraph email. We do promise to. So that's why he was a little bit upset, is we broke our promise basically to him. So hopefully this makes up for it a little bit. His email was still, or his voicemail was still relevant, and yeah, now we can move forward. So thanks for that, Rick.
Maybe reorganize our inbox or something.
Yeah,
into some folders.
That could be.
I don't know if that'll help.
I don't know if there's filters or something I can put in there I'd have to look into it. But anyway, and you know what? His voicemail is great because it kind of refreshes a lot of things that happened in the end, and that kicks us off into what's going on this season. So let's get to it. Let's get to our ratings. X-Force, kick us off. Season 7 premiere.
I gave this one 9 Gideons in the flesh. I loved every minute of this premiere. I feel like we have direction and opportunity for growth. Without the Wave Rider, each one of our legends is going to have to step up and make things work. And I, for one, am glad to have a literal grounded season this go around. Will there be wackiness? Yes, but I'm hopeful it'll be closer to Season 2 wackiness and Season 6. But I really loved it. I've watched this episode 3 times, loved it all 3 times. I am so glad we're back.
Well, I only watched it twice, but it was very enjoyable both times, I will say. I also gave it a 9 accidental deaths.
Whoa, look at you two.
I mean, with such a short break between seasons, where we left and where we started actually felt kind of seamless for once, considering that our last break was like a year and a half. So this was rushed, sort of, in a way, but it felt more like a hiatus than like a true seasonal break. So I kind of liked that. All the changes were still fresh. And I kind of enjoyed our scaled down legends this episode. I wasn't sure that I would go for this. But I mean, if you want a show that's like more than time travel and superpowers, as we're told like throughout this episode, I guess this is how you're going to have to do it. And I thought they did it really well. I mean, there's a strong story, a possibly season-long problem to solve. We'll have to see how long this goes out with them being stranded, and then character decisions that I thought for once made sense. So they addressed issues we've complained about too. I was pleasantly surprised, and a lot of them end up to be convenient, and we can talk about those if we would like. But just quick recap of a few things that they address that I know we have complained about recently is why not use a time courier? Do they still have memory flashers? Why is it Nate a historian? And there was another one that I think I put in our notes later on. But overall, it was a very well done episode.
Yeah, it's just good to hear you back on the show, Harley, and giving your thoughts. So I see the pattern here. X-Force, you watched it 3 times, you rated a 9. Harley, you watched it 2 times, you rated a 9. I only got to watch it once. So do I have to watch it more times to get my rating higher up?
I don't think so. I mean, I liked it equally as well both times. I don't think you needed a second watch to make it better.
I just didn't have the time to fit it in this week. So mine is a 7.5. You stole my title, X-Force. Getting in the flesh. I can't really argue with your guys' points. It was a pretty decent start to the new season, but in no way was that a slam bam wow of an episode to me. There's just way too much room for growth and improvement for me to give it that high of a score right off the bat. I'm hoping for way more and a lot better as the season goes on. What I agree with, though, is that it seemed to just flow like a well-oiled machine. No stupid stuff, every character playing their role and fitting into the story. I especially loved all the callbacks to the Time Bureau and Ava and Gary's time together there. That really brought some history forward to connect this season. And Gideon at the end, are you kidding me? how many seasons have I been yelling at the writers to bring her into the flesh? I explained exactly how they need to do it, and they finally do it. I will fully stake claim on this idea because I had it like 5 seasons ago.
I think we were all happy to see her.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, let's get into our show.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
So, Harley, before we get started, I want to ask, have you been able to keep up to the podcast during your time away?
The Legends podcast, yes. I finished out y'all's coverage. Stargirl, I'm still working on.
Okay.
And I finished Superman and Lois, of course, as well. So, yes.
So I'm curious, with your hammer in your hand, how have the boys done in your absence?
Terrible, awful. Oh my god. No, I'm just kidding. No, I thought it was great. It was in some ways odd to listen to you all not live because I kept wanting to put myself in. I would like in my head say my parts. Yeah. Like I'm not even kidding. I would sign off and everything. But like it was nice to also not know what you guys were going to say. So it was kind of nice to listen to the two of you, like as a podcast. It was kind of cool for me. Huh. Weird, but cool.
Okay.
If that makes
Well,
sense.
that's good.
So,
That's good.
I thought you guys did a great job. I mean, you guys all had good points. Jeff, for the most part, covered mine. So, you know. We tend to be more on the same page.
Cool. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad because we didn't want to let you down or disappoint you when you came back and go, all right, guys, that's it. I'm taking this thing over. You messed it up.
No, I thought it was great. I don't know.
Good. Well, good to hear. Well, you're back in the command seat. Let's see where you take us for our Legends premiere.
Oh, this ought to get interesting. I haven't done this for a minute. Okay. Let's start with the meat of the episode where the Legends are stranded.
Okay.
So, I first would like to call attention to the cold open. Personally, I loved it because for once we got to see what the locals see. And I thought that was pretty fantastic. You kind of have like typical skeptical sheriff, which is actually a little bit unusual for a small town. So I kind of like that they didn't go the trope of him being like dumb and like the wool being pulled over his eyes. Like he was just kind of listening to everybody's story and slowly getting more like, okay, maybe something weird is going on. And then he puts the pieces together throughout the whole episode, which I really liked. And then the locals who have no idea what to make of all of this. And it's set in 1925. So I really liked kind of just seeing their reactions to it and how they were explaining this like weird alien phenomenon that was going on. So that was a nice touch. And I love that it kind of played off throughout the rest of the episode. It sets up the payoff later with the whole Hoover storyline. And I thought it was pretty cool. I don't think they've ever done that before.
You don't say. Wasn't that the sheriff's line to every single person in the town? You don't say.
Something like that, yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, the opening sequence, that there wasn't any. It was just a title. So that was surprising. So I thought, wow, okay, maybe they need to fit in more time for the episode, so they're cutting out the 20-second title screen. But no, it was only a 41-minute episode. Like, come on, really? Give us a 48-minute episode or something. But you're right. It was really cool. It was a really different perspective to what's going on when we can see it from all the side characters, from the town's perspective, that, you know, stuff's crashing down, there's explosions, there's debris, like what's happening, what's going on. I thought it was really cool to see what they're witnessing, and because it's in the time period that it is, I mean, the confusion and, you know, the little bit of hysteria that's starting to set in because people are wondering, what the heck? I mean, can you just imagine with a 1920s mindset, what you're seeing doesn't quite jive.
Yeah, and it was really good because it put us in the mindset of what, like Harley said, what the other people were thinking about and saying, and that's good since we're going to be stuck here for a while. So I like the fact that we're seeing that it's not all about the Legends, and they're not going to be able to, get rid of the memories with a quick mind wipe. And it really kind of sets the pace for the season of saying, yeah, they've got to take into consequence what people are saying and seeing. So I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Now, of course, as everything needs to start off, their initial plan is just very Legends, and it really just makes me laugh because they just want to go back, storm the Wave Rider, take control. that's just what they do. I was like, of course it's not going to work out. But the reasons, and this is where we get to jump into some of the things that I know we've complained about in the past, that they weren't able to do it. So the first one, Time Courier is dead. They addressed it. Is it convenient? 100%, but at least they addressed it. So that made me really happy. They had one on them. They tried to use it. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah. While it's out of juice, that does not mean it can't be charged later. Or maybe they're going to use the courier as the basis that Dr. Davies uses to get them time traveling again. But yeah, I like the fact that convenience was dealt with quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, not even just a convenience. The fact that they showed us one of them was wearing, because how many episodes did we see? I took my time courier off. Well, that's more plot convenient to me than this. At least they had it. And right now, they really have no way to charge it. It's very Back to the Future. They'd have to find some type of steam-powered interface way of doing it. And they can't. So I think that's fun. It gets them trapped in a Back to the Future 3 Western type of scenario. But I wouldn't say it's really convenient here. Like, to me, it makes a lot more story sense, because sometimes things are just too easy and too plot convenient to have it work. So I like that it didn't work. And like you said, Harley, they addressed something, and I want to keep an eye on this all season long if they continue to do that. If the writers have finally woken back up to what they've brought to us in the past, and they're gonna I mean, this show likes to make fun of itself. It always does. So if this is a way of making fun of themselves, like, okay, we're actually going to correct all of our own mistakes and stupid stuff we keep doing, but we're going to make it part of the story, I'm totally here for that.
Yeah, no, me too. All right, so the next one, the memory flashers. It was out of batteries. Also, a little bit of Murphy's Law, but again, at least they tried. So, kudos, they tried.
Yeah, and so refresh my memory, Legends here. Did they have some type of memory flasher in the time before the Time Bureau? Or was it introduced with the Time Bureau?
I think it was introduced with that season of the Time Bureau when we met Ava.
I think it was too. Because we just rewatched season 2, and I don't remember them having them. Did Rip have a version of it? Because he would have then introduced that at the Time Bureau as well.
Yeah, I think it was that season in the Time Bureau when Ava came on board. I don't remember it before that.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's once again, if they didn't have one before, it kind of takes them back to season 1, season 2 era with how they do things, because they don't have that. So I was just curious about that. So
because that's an easy way out of everything. Like, they now have to be careful of what they do and what the locals witness, because they can't simply mind flash them. So now they got to think ahead and plan, and if they do get caught, well, now, because I think even one of the characters was explaining that we actually have to write a story. Well, actually, it was part of the story. They have to create a circus to explain what all the explosions were about, and that way the locals should hopefully believe it. So they're thinking on their feet. They're thinking, how can we get around this without having the mind flasher, which I think is great. It's making our team use their brains for a change instead of just relying on the cheap, easy way out. The mind flasher.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, I find it funny that the mind flasher takes batteries. You would think it'd be some kind of rechargeable lithium thing or some other high-tech, future tech thing that self-charges itself, because if this is Rip's gadget that he introduces, and all the Time Bureau stuff is, I assumed it was from the future, just like the Wave Rider is, so why wouldn't this tech be futuristic that it doesn't need a battery?
I do think it's funny.
Yeah.
It is also funny for them to just say, it's had a battery.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of like a flashlight, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was funny either way. All right, so the third thing that we, I guess, learn about was the failsafe. that I did not remember hearing about before. So I thought this was pretty intriguing. Now we find out it's eventually mostly empty and completely useless, which felt very classic Legends. But again, it was an actual plan should they get stranded. They had a contingency in place, which I believe we've questioned in the past.
Yeah, this was smart thinking on Ava's part about adding that to the ship. You would think with her lists and everything else, she would double check it more often. But I'll let it go because we are dealing with the Legends here. So,
well, on that point, they do tell us that Mick got into it before his last adventure. So even maybe she didn't have time to catch it because it's pretty close. Like Harley said, this episode is riding right on the back end of our finale from last season, so she maybe just didn't. Maybe she doesn't check it every 5 minutes. She checks it every week, every month. Who knows? I mean,
Every month, I don't
so
know. Long enough for Rory to go on a beer run.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I find it funny that because when you hear of a fail-safe, you think of a plan. It's a backup plan, plan B, plan C, not a fail-safe being an actual locked box with stuff in it as the fail-safe, quote-unquote. I thought that was kind of funny.
It was a nice play on words. Yeah.
But I also like that she has it there. I mean, I just love all the Ava stuff being part of this show now because she's been a main character with us for quite a few seasons now. And to me, little things like this just solidify her as a main character now. She is co-captain with Sarah. She is part of our team. And seeing these little background elements that shows that she's been living on the ship and she's made changes to the ship and she's improved things the way she needs to do because she's director of the Time Bureau. I just love that. That really incorporates her into the family here. And I don't know. I love it. Ava's my favorite, and I just love that they gave her these nice little touches to show that she's been with us.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also really loved all the callbacks to the Time Bureau. As I said in my opening, that there's been long history now over a few seasons of Ava and Gary and where they came from. So all the callbacks this episode was kind of paying homage to it, and I thought it was just great, like homage to their history together as a duo because they've been together for a long time as characters. But just like kind of what I was just saying about solidifying Ava, it just solidifies their story that this Time Bureau stuff has been around for a long time, and we've often mentioned. Why don't they bring up the Time Bureau again? Like there was a couple seasons they never mentioned it at all. So the fact that they're bringing it around again, it's just paying homage to Ava and Gary's time on this show, and I like that too.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah. And speaking of Time Bureau callbacks, we learn about Rule 44, which turns into the Guggenheim Circus. Made me giggle in and of itself. But the whole thing about this storyline that I liked, and this was part of them being like grounded and stranded and not having technology, was they had to fend for themselves and they had to be resourceful.
Yeah.
And this is where I felt like they leaned into some of the character moments that made sense, and I really liked it. Like Zari took the lead about like trying to make like costumes and trying to create the circus, which totally makes sense. She's a fashion mogul. Of course, she's going to know how to sew and kind of like do all those kinds of things. Like, even though she's like from the future, I mean, you still at some point in her life, she probably had to sew her own costume or sew her own dress or do something along those lines, and can't, just rely on like buying stuff or like, the fabricator technology doesn't exist off the Wave Riders. So, I thought that was a nice touch. And then they also made a point of showing how much they ransacked Gloria's house. And so, like, I mean, if you think about the time period, those people, like, they have everything that they needed and everything that they owned was just all under one roof, and there was no way to get other stuff. And so the fact that they just totally turned her house upside down to like wearing her dead husband's suit was just, it was a good touch. I really liked it.
Yeah. I love this because we're really getting to see them use new/underused skills. And I like this because I think it opens a lot of doors for them to be able to just grow this season and be more resourceful and really flesh out their characters a little more. And so I really like this montage that we got to see of each person playing their little part.
Well, it allows them to shine without having tech and gadgets. It shows that they've learned stuff, like actually learned things. They've got skills, or they're falling back on skills they had before they boarded the Wave Rider. They can figure things out instead of collapsing without the tech, because how often have we seen them just, completely not be able to do anything when they don't have their tech? And, in Mick's finest words, our team ain't so dumb. Like, if only Mick was here to add to it, because he often gets treated as a big dummy, but we've seen that he's not. And now our team is showing that they're not either. They actually can do stuff. And I like talking about Mama Spooner there. I like how accepting she is of everything. Like, there's so much crazy stuff just happening around her, and she totally just goes with the flow. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I love that character. I didn't have much in the notes about her. I don't know if you guys do, but she's great, and I do really like her.
Yeah. I mean, if I don't know how much more we're going to get of her. I think once we get out of this time period, we'll probably leave her behind. But I have a feeling she'll be a supporting character for a couple episodes.
Yeah.
Well, seeing as some of our team is still at her place, we don't know how long they're going to be there. Yeah. So,
True.
That's true. Well, speaking of returning to form, Nate the Historian returns.
Yes.
Now, I had a point that I wanted to bring up. Now, of course, I just love seeing him use his knowledge on the fly and him just not being a total bro. Like, I like that. I like that they're kind of bringing that back out of his character, and that he's, using his knowledge and using his brain and not being such a dude. But what I also loved is it does show like why they need Gideon in these situations and how she is so useful, because she can see like all the details, like the fact that she probably would have known that Hoover would have been just up the street, from Odessa, Texas at that time. Right. Whereas Nate just kind of like knows the bigger picture. Like he knows, J. Edgar Hoover, this will be a good person to impersonate because the time period fits right. And he knows the presidents and like, those types of like historical accuracies. But what he didn't know was where Hoover was at that point in time.
Yeah.
And that the sheriff was already suspicious.
Yeah.
So he kind of started to put two and two together.
Yeah. I love that Nate gets to use all that head knowledge about history, and it was that knowledge that got him on board the Wave Rider in the first place. And I like that we're getting to see that used again, and in a way that is not without them taking away his powers. I really wonder what it's going to be like with the Nate and Gideon dynamic this season, now that she's in the flesh, and to see how they kind of work together, and if she has memories and things like that. But I'm anxious to see them working together this season.
All the guys are going to fall in love with her, of course. They're all going to be vying for her attention. I mean, they have seen her in person before. I was trying to remember. She was in Rip's head the last time we saw her, and then there was that episode where it was her, Ava, and Sarah running around. So they will recognize her and know who it is. I think it's because Astor and Spooner had never seen her yet. That's why it took them a second.
Gary had.
Yeah, it took them a second to acknowledge who it was. But once the rest of the team sees it, they're going to be, oh my God, Gideon, what? And and we'll see what happens from there. So I can't wait for that moment. But back to Nate, I'm totally with you guys. It just seemed like he was so in his element this episode. He was excited. He was impactful to the story. He was the actor Nick Zano, he was having fun with the role, because I've been complaining that he just seems out of it, like he just is uninterested in performing this role anymore. This episode, he looked like he was having fun again, and I like that he got to still use his powers a little bit, but this episode he used them in very useful ways when they were needed. It wasn't plot device heavy. It wasn't stupid, like a bullet's gonna be shot at him and it knocks him out. Like he used it to block the bullets being shot at the car, to save his team, and he was driving at the same time. We saw him steel up his arms so he could help break some mortar bricks and stuff. He was just very useful when he used it, and that's how I want to see his powers. If you need to control the budget, okay, but let us see it, but let it be useful and part of the story, and it was in this episode. So good stuff.
Yeah. Well, the last point that I have here that's kind of random, but I wanted to bring it up and I didn't know where else to put it, is this pocket dimension that they end up discovering from John. So I guess, is this kind of going to be like our new temporal zone for this season? I got a little confused because Zari stayed behind, but I think Bearhead took the key. So can any closet get them there?
So
Sorry, that was more than one question.
yeah, I think, we theorized that the key might be the key to the mansion and they'll somehow get there, but it looks like that it's going to be this temporal one. But I've got some questions myself, but I'll hang on to those for a sec.
Well, I mean, of course, John makes a hideaway. He makes a pocket. We're finding out about his powers that we have. I thought he was just dark magic, but he can make a whole pocket dimension. Okay, his powers are pretty powerful, more so than I ever thought. And it's cool, it's fun, it's interesting. Is it plot devicey? I don't know. It's just, what I liked about it is it still keeps his influence. There's still a piece of John Constantine in our show, at least for the time being.
Yeah.
It's the mansion, and it allows us not to forget about it. They're not going to just cut him loose and walk away from the Constantine being on our show for as long as he has been. So it's cool, and it's basically a safe house. That's what it is. It's a safe house. If they need to escape, they just find a door, and away they go. So hopefully they don't use it too often, because then it becomes too plot devicey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm a little worried about, but I can see its usefulness.
Yeah, so I've got questions. So when Zari exits the dimension, will it be in Mrs. Cruz's closet, or is where she comes out dependent on where they use the key? So, like, if they use the key somewhere else on a different door, then that back door, wherever, is going to come out to that spot. And if Zari exit, then she wouldn't be able to get back because she doesn't have the key. So there's all these rules that we don't know yet, and it would be really convenient if you could connect the two groups that are separated now. But I don't know that you can do that using this pocket dimension unless there was more than one key, because it's tied to that closet until they use the key somewhere else, and then if they use the key somewhere else, well, the group in Odessa can't connect back. So I've got lots of questions, and we've got new rules.
But see, this is the kind of space timey-wimey stuff that me and Harley have always loved to try to pick apart and understand and figure out. So this isn't spacey stuff, but it's still cool, magical, mystical mystery. And I think you're on the right track there, X-Force. I think that you need that key to get to the pocket dimension, and that key can be used in any door. But so once they open that door, that is wherever that door got opened from, that is now the entrance and exit to the pocket dimension. So if they opened up Mama Cruz's closet and someone goes in, okay, they're in there. But if they go use the key on a different door, that now becomes the entrance exit door. And if whoever's in the dimension leaves, they will come out into the new area that it got opened up from. I believe there is only one key.
Yeah.
My problem here is that it's a very old-fashioned key. It's one of those big iron keys. And it's only going to fit those really old-style locks. So if they were in modern times, say in 2021, and they wanted to escape, that key's not going to fit any doors. We don't use keys like that anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. Maybe this key will only be used while they're stuck back in the 1920s Texas. Maybe it will only be here for that long, because knowing the legends, they're probably going to lose it pretty quickly, is my guess. A neat item like that, they're probably going to lose it. I just have a feeling they're not going to use it too much, because hopefully it's the writers figuring that we can't use it that much. It's too plot device heavy. But I have a feeling it will only be used for while they're back in time, because it's useless otherwise.
Yeah.
Or it could be a magic key, could adapt to the lock, but we'll see.
True. Actually, that'd be cool. I mean, it is magic. Maybe when they go to shove it in the lock, you see it transform and change shape, Because it is Constantine's magic. You're right.
I don't know.
There's a good counter. Yeah. So maybe it can work on any door.
Yeah, now that would be interesting if it did end up transforming. But yeah, we'll just have to see if it doesn't, maybe Astra can. But I kind of agree with you. As long as they're not stranded anymore, why would they need that? Because they can just go into the temporal zone and the Wave Rider, and it's kind of the same thing. That's why I kind of felt like for as long as they're doing this stranded thing, which is why I feel like it's going to be more of a season-long arc, that they introduced this as the temporal zone.
Yeah.
That was kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so.
Cool. Well, now the last one I want to talk about before we kind of jump into some of the fun, like bank robbery stuff, was just about Ava and how they've just kind of like set everything up for her of how lost she feels without the Wave Rider. There's no lists, there's no memory flashers, just an old time bureau book. So this was kind of an interesting way to explore her character, and I liked it.
Well, there's no technology. She's grown up with technology, right? So, I mean, yes, she's time traveled with the team and gone to all these periods of histories, but they've used technology to help themselves in those time periods. So now she is without it. And yeah, she needed that time bureau book. I mean, what I think they're going to do with her character, at least in the time being, I think she's going to have some mental struggles here because of what you just said. And I think that's good. It's going to allow for more growth for her as the clone character. Her programming needs to advance. She needs to learn. And I think it's going to allow for some story writing, which we saw in this episode for her and Sarah. Sarah's going to have to help her through this struggle of having to live life like people used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Oh, yeah. I just love the way that they set it up.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump into the Bullet Blondes.
Yeah.
And I gotta pause here because the writers' room for the show actually changed the name on their Twitter account from Legends Writers Room to the Bullet Blondes Writers Room.
Oh, I like the name. I thought that was fun. When we saw the title of this episode, I wasn't really sure exactly what it meant, other than it probably had to do with Sarah and Ava. And so I liked the whole bank robbery thing and this whole scene. Like, this was amazing. I love that they walk in there, they have everyone's weapon before they even knew it was happening. And because there's no other technology, it's probably just a walk in the park for them. They don't have to worry about a lot of things that they would in a modern time.
Yeah, they were just so smooth. It really shows you how good they are at distractions and stealth, and even more how good of a couple they are working together and so smoothly. I just loved it. It was awesome to see.
Well, coming up to our favorite scenes, you'll see that this was probably my favorite part of the episode because it's Ava, because it's Sarah. And, I mean, think about it. They're in 1920s Odessa, Texas. Sarah's a trained assassin. She knows stealth. So these guys are just bumbling idiots compared to her. So it was super easy for them to do it, but it was so much fun how they just danced around and used the distraction techniques. It was just fun. I absolutely loved it. I loved their accents. I loved everything that they did. This was a fun sequence, and you could tell the girls were having a good time doing it.
Absolutely. And they were actually doing kind of a good job of not making too much of a fuss and leaving, quote, small footprints until this crazy lady who's obsessed with robberies just announces them to the whole town. I was like, what is happening right now? And where is Spirit?
That lady was kind of like Ava and her Stab podcast.
Yes.
This lady's just obsessed with gangs or something, apparently. Yeah,
total fan.
I mean, even that scene was so funny that she's out there just trying to one-up Nate. Nate's trying to brush her off, you don't know nothing, lady. And the lady's like, yeah, but this, but that. No, no. There's no women part of this gang. And he has to keep trying to change his story to keep up with her, and he can't. And it was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah. It was so fun just to see their back and forth and the trying to figure out a gang name and everything else. It was just hilarious.
Yeah. He's like, damn it, B, it's so catchy. It is catchy. All right, the biggest wave they happened to make was killing J. Edgar Hoover by accident.
Whoops.
Yeah, seriously, this whole plot point was hilarious, first of all. But I loved Jess McCallan in these scenes. I think, do we talk more about this later? But I just love that she totally freaks out, then completely shuts down. And then she totally switches on her true crime brain and just like pops back to life. I loved, first of all, that they brought it back, that they mentioned her podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And look, everyone has something to offer. This whole episode, she's been freaking out and shutting down and trying to figure out a way to help, and she's finally found her moment to shine.
Yeah, it just proves that she's more than just a program clone. She's grown so much over the seasons, and like Flash, she's my favorite character on the show because of just the growth that she's had and just her character as well. So I loved it.
And like Harley said, Jess McCallan's performance. I mean, when she's freaking out, she's pretty much fritzing out like an android, and she just lays down on the ground and just completely flat out. Like
goodbye.
So I'm done. She cracks me up. She is so much fun. That she really, really gets into the comedy of her role, but she doesn't overdo it. It's just comes out so naturally from her, and I love her. She was fun all the way through.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a favorite scene, so I won't dwell too much on this, but I love the way Sarah helped Ava work through things all episode long, and you can just really see the trust and growth in them. And so I'll leave that because that's a favorite scene coming up. So
again, the one relationship that Legends has done really well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's all we can say about it. So, and that's enough. We don't need any more, but there's probably another one's going to spark up this season.
We'll see. Let's just let's not throw that out there for right now.
Gary and Gideon.
Yeah, Gary and Gideon. Could you imagine? Oh man! Well, I mean, she has helped them out before. They've gotten along really well. But speaking of relationships, I know there's probably half of the fans out there are trying to ship Astor and Spooner to hook up. But let's just talk about their friendship, because I know it's coming up in the notes here. I think that is something the show is doing really well, because we hadn't decided how much we like these characters yet and how well they're going to fit in. And I think them two growing together because they're the newest characters on the show, and them bonding over that and becoming friends is something the show is also doing really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I like them much more as a pair of friends, and the new people in the group, and more than a romantic pair. So I like their bonding and their friendship in that aspect. So.
Yeah, no, I think they make a great team, and so I like that aspect of it too. So I hope they kind of keep it like that besties vibe, where they've kind of just like got each other's back, because it makes sense for them. So.
Yeah, I mean, because two characters get along and like hanging out doesn't mean they have to hook up. Like, I wish the fans would stop that. Quit shipping every time two characters get along. I'm getting really tired of. Let's just have friends on the show.
I know. I hear you. Well, another thing I want to talk about was Astra's resurrection spell. So we've kind of moved into these storylines. That was super cool looking. Completely backfires on her. I mean, she almost finished it, I guess. I mean, she said she only had like one word to go, but she just couldn't quite get it out, and at least not at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the effects shot was amazing, and it just shows you how much she's learned from her own studies and her practice with John. And I really like the fact that, this is part of my favorite scene, but I'm liking that she's going to make the magic her own, and she's learned the hard lesson here that she, she can't be John. But I just the FX of the pieces pulling from here and there and everywhere and reforming, and it was amazing to see.
Well, I think the effects the whole episode, considering we're stuck in 1920s Texas, like we got a lot of special effects this episode, and it seems like we may have got a bump in effects budget because everything looked really good. Even Nate stealing up, but this scene especially, it blew me away. I was a little bit taken aback. I had no idea Astra had developed that much power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's surprising me. So she's not John. She is developing her own technique, her own way of performing the magic. So I think it's going to be a little bit different than what we saw from John, especially now that she's, like you said, learned the hard lesson of going it her own way instead of trying to mimic John. So I think we'll start seeing a change in the magic effects and everything. And it's cool. It gives Astra some purpose, because I've been questioning that for a long time.
Yeah.
And it gives her some purpose and gives her a place on our team and in the show. So I'm happy. I've slowly finally started to have her grow on me, and I hope we continue to get that this season with her.
Yeah, I do too. And I like that they pointed out that her magic might be different. And so I think she is incredibly powerful. And I think that has a lot to do with, her mom was kind of into this stuff. So I'm wondering if it kind of maybe just runs in the family, if you will. So that might help explain her innate power. Was she as powerful as John? No. Would he necessarily have been able to complete this spell too? I don't know. There's really no way for us to really know that. But in her head, she thinks that he does. And I think that's part of the problem. So I like that we can play with the fact that maybe her magic is a little different and she's just going to go about things differently. And we kind of saw that happen a little bit because they're just talking about the spell. She ends up finishing the spell, not, I guess, realizing that it would actually finish the spell. And as they're talking about Gideon and talking about how much they missed her, there we go. We get a human Gideon instead.
Yeah, that they were both wishing for Gideon to be there to fix some alcohol and some food, and she appeared, and I loved it.
Absolutely the best moment of the entire episode. We have been asking for that actress to, is it Amy Pemberton?
Yes.
That's her name? For her to show up on her show in the flesh a lot more and be a regular character. Like I said in my opening, my wish was to have that. So not only did Astra get their wish, she made my wish come true, and probably thousands of other fans as well. But it was really neat that the spell, because Astra never left the area, she's just stayed there the whole time. And once she regained some of her energy, she's like, well, the last word was whatever the word was. And you just see this little trickle of red energy come out of her fingertips and work its way into the ground. And so that the spell hung on because she never completed it. So once she said the last word, it did complete the spell. I find it interesting that even though she was moving the spaceship pieces around, there must have been the essence of Gideon within that the last word binded itself to, or bound itself to, and it was able to find that and connect to that and complete it and bring Gideon into that. Now, is she pure flesh and blood? I wonder if they'll explain that, or if she's like an android. We'll have to see.
Yeah, that they will, and I wonder how much of her memories and personality she retained, because a human mind is more finite than her AI storage unit, and plus in human form she's going to have more of a personality, and I'm excited to see how that will play out and how she grows and becomes more than just the AI that we've known all these seasons.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, the actress gets to play it out and gets to be more. I'll be curious to see, because Gideon last season was a bit snarky, more so than usual.
Yes.
And mean and like having, like joking around with a team and being mean about it. So I'm curious how much of that's going to be here. I mean, when we see her here, she looks confused and lost. So is she going to be completely mind wiped free and have to learn all about life, or will, once everything kind of becomes clear, will she suddenly realize, oh, I know who I am, and holy, I'm alive, like what's going on? And we'll have to, I'm so curious to see. This is going to be my absolute favorite storyline of this season.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And just getting to see Amy get to play the part, and it'll be neat. It'll be neat to get to see her actually stretch her acting muscles. We hear it in her voice, and we've gotten to see it in a few episodes she's come alive in. But I can't wait. I'm so looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be good. All right. Well, I want to end with a theory, but before I do that, did we miss any points or anything that you guys wanted to touch on before we jump to that? I just like to throw it out.
No, I think that's good. You covered it good for your first time back.
I just like to throw it back out there, just to make sure there's nothing that the discussion. Sometimes discussion sparks stuff. So, anyways, so I want us to throw out our early theories on who blew up the Wave Rider. I'm going to be pretty boring because my guess is that they're going to do it to themselves to ensure the timeline stays intact by the end of the season. That's the last thing on Ava's list. That's what I think.
Okay.
And you know what? That's pretty plausible.
I know.
Yeah.
And probably too predictable, but probably where it's going to end up. So that's why I said it's boring. Anyways, what do you guys think?
Okay. Yeah, so here's... I could see that happening, but here's my crazy theory. Barry Allen's Gideon, voiced by Morena Baccarin, comes from the future and blows up the ship to start a chain of events that leads to our Gideon becoming real. The legends find this out later, but they don't interfere, but they can fix what they can. So that's my crazy theory that won't ever happen, but hey, it would be kind of interesting to see two Gideons interacting, but that's my crazy theory.
It would be cool to have Morena come forward as her version of Gideon, and see what those two Gideons would interact with each other like. That'd be kind of fun.
That would be amazing. I don't know if Morena would do that. I don't know what else she's busy with. But.
I don't really have a theory because I actually kind of agree with yours, Harley, but I think as a fun guess, just to throw it in the pot there in case because I've been predicting Stargirl really well this season, so I'm going to just throw this prediction out for Legends is we've been talking about possibly getting an evil Gideon storyline this season.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd like to think that may be one possibility, that's an evil Gideon coming to destroy the good Gideon to hopefully trap the team there, because evil Gideon has her own plans for the future and stuff like that.
Right.
So there you go.
Interesting.
I thought that would be fun since it's the premiere, we can theorize where the season's going to end up, because that's going to have to be the ending, is figuring out who blew it up, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's like the who's in the gravestone on Arrow.
Yes.
Right?
They do this every season. They set something up in the beginning and then we resolve it by the end. So
yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, good discussion, guys. Let's get into our favorite scenes.
Shape out and eagle!
All right. So chronologically, we're all actually pretty close. We're all within a few minutes of each other. But Harley, you come first.
That's unusual. I don't normally get to go first. Well, anyway, I called this scene "We're More Than This," and I'll save my comments for after we listen to the scene. But it's the Sarah and Ava porch scene.
You want to go on a crime spree? I mean, I don't even like the idea of leaving this house, but since we have to, listen to me, we need to make very small footprints. And remember, we don't even have our equipment. What if somebody...
Babe, look, you're right. And I'm scared too. But I believe in us, and I believe in our team. We're more than time travel and superpowers and gadgets and manuals. We are the legends, and we can pull this off. I know we can. And as soon as we can time travel again, we will go and fix all the changes that we made. You can make a list of timeline IOUs. You love lists. And then we will cross them off, every single one.
Every single one.
Every single one.
Fine. All right, crime spree it is, but just until we can time travel again.
I had that last little bit in there. Go ahead, Harley. I just want to say I love Ava. I just love her. Fine.
I know. I thought it was funny that for those of us that keep complaining about it, which is definitely the three of us, because we're not catching on, Sarah does kind of lay it all out that they're the team, that it's about the legends and it's about them as a team, and it's not about the time travel, it's not about the gadgets and all of that stuff. So they're more than that.
Yeah. You could almost say more than meets the eye, but that's stealing from another franchise.
That's true. So with all that said, I'm just hoping for a really tight and well done season. I think I read somewhere it's only 13 episodes. So the premiere is great. Let's keep it going.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we liked about Stargirl and Superman and Lois having shorter seasons. A lot of shows seem to have better, tighter stories with the shorter seasons. So let's see how Legends handles that.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. All right, I'm next up, and I am going with the Bullet Blondes. Here they are again.
Hit the floor, boys. This is a robbery.
Not our first rodeo. You heard the lady. Get on the ground.
And you, I want you to go to the safe and get me $93.65.
Okay.
93.
Yeah, I did the calculation, babe. It's all we need to get to New York City. Small footprints, you promised. And give me the money.
Well, I actually have enough here in the till. No need to open the safe.
Now, y'all gonna put your heads down and count to 100 and pretend you never saw us.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. And go about your lives like none of this ever happened. Completing any historically significant events you might otherwise have done.
Let's go.
Make way for the
It's so much fun. That's all I got to say there.
Oh, I love their accents. That was so fun.
It was a great scene. I mean, even like listening to it, it's still hilarious.
Hilarious. All right, next verse, what you got?
So I called this one Words of Wisdom from Mama Cruz. So let's take a listen.
Tell me, what did you do to hurt yourself so much?
I tried to perform a spell that I wasn't ready for, and it nearly destroyed me. My former mentor would be so disappointed if he were here right now, saying I have to be willing to walk alone and risk it all if I want to succeed.
You know, my mother was a great healer. She taught me everything that she knew. But I was terrible at it. It wasn't until I was able to cast off her training, start fresh, in a way that reflected who I am, that I truly became a healer myself.
Yeah, but walk alone, sacrifice yourself. That's what magic is about.
Your mentor taught you how he did magic, yeah? But you're not him.
Yeah, it may be a little trite, it may be overused, but Mama Cruz's advice to Astra is what she needed. You can't be a clone of your heroes, your mentors, your parents. You've got to take the lessons you've learned from them and make them your own, and I really appreciated that. And I like the fact that she's got this respect for Mrs. Cruz, and that really broke through to her.
Yeah. It's again, they're developing Astra. I think without John being there as a distraction for her, they found a path for her to take, and hopefully it'll be good.
Yeah, and I think what I liked about that is just like, it just reiterates that Astra needs to do things a different way. Like, she doesn't have to do it exactly the way John is. She's a different person. She relates to things differently, and I think we've seen magic to be a little bit more like intuitive, and so I think she needs to find her own way. She's got to walk her own line or walk her own way. What is it that John says? But he says he has to walk alone. Whatever. She needs to find her own way to walk.
Yeah.
With Spooner by her side, though.
There you go. Yeah, not alone. Maybe that's the trick.
Not alone. See, you need someone to keep you in check. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fun clips, guys. Fun clips. All right, let's get to our Patreon support.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
Yeah, because we're up to 2 shows again, guys, and we definitely would appreciate your support. Harley, did you hear back from the latest t-shirt company yet?
I don't think that I did, although I think it's coming to your email.
Yeah, well, we'll have to. I haven't heard back yet. So, like I said, you put the order in a couple days ago, and it has not been bounced back saying they refuse it this time. So,
No.
We'll see.
So hopefully, yeah, they should. Hopefully, they'll let you know when it's being shipped. If not, I'll let you know when I get it.
Yeah.
But I think it's all in the States, so shipping. I don't know how long it takes them to print them, but shipping should be pretty quick.
Yeah, we explained last week what happened, why we've been jumping through hoops with different shirt companies to get them to print our podcast logo that just happens to have TV show logos. They're not happy with that, so we're working on it, guys. But at least the next one is in there, and we'll get those out to you as soon as we get them.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will try to keep you guys updated on the timing of all of that. But yeah, sorry. At this point, we're kind of at the mercy of the company.
It's feedback, your time to speak up. Believe it or not, what you think and you say means a lot to us. But why should we sit here and wait if you won't hurry up? So feedback or simply shut up.
Alrighty, it's feedback time, and that means Daryl Washington is up first with an email.
I just love Sarah's positive can-do attitude. Marital Bliss is really agreeing with her. Between Sarah dressing up as a ringmaster, Spooner and Astra becoming official best friends, which I totally saw coming back in There Will Be Brood, and Human Gideon showing up, this has been a great premiere for Legends. I could have done without Zari 2.0 being hung up on John, though. Well, I mean, that's kind of to be expected. I mean, you know.
At least they're leaving her in the temporal zone to sort it out, or the whatever that we're calling that place.
The pocket dimension.
Zone. There we go, the pocket dimension. Sorry.
The safe house. Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to deal with it. We can't. It'd be weird if she just completely forgot about him. So we might get an episode or two of her, kind of working through it, and hopefully that is all it is, and not a season-long wah, wah, wah type of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, good stuff, Daryl. Next up is a voicemail from Perry White.
Hey, Flash and X-Force11. It's Perry White here with feedback for Legends of Tomorrow's season premiere episode, The Bullet Plans. I'm just going to go ahead and get this out of the way from jump. I give this episode a freaking 10.
Whoa.
I sort of view season premiere episodes sort of like pilot episodes, right? They need to sort of set the stage for what the series is going to be about or what the season is going to be about. And this episode did a fantastic job of doing all that. It gave each of our characters sort of the lane that they're going to be in. It had the perfect amount of humor. It had the perfect amount of tension. It's just, and more than anything else, one of the things that the show's been lacking for some time, I think, in my opinion, is it has some stakes to it, because we have our legends out here without the technology that they're used to, without the creature comforts that they're used to, and they're having to fend for themselves. And it's been years for many of our heroes who have had to do that. Just handling simple stuff like, hey, how are we going to deal with food today? What am I going to wear today? How are we going to make money? How are we going to get these things done? And I'm just looking forward to seeing our legends have to deal with those practical things when they haven't had to do them for quite a long time. I think it sets up for a great amount of drama. I think it also sets up for a great amount of humor, and I am here for it. One of the other things that I really liked and appreciated about this episode is going back to last season, the writers have done a fair job in creating a real relationship with Astra and Spooner. And in so many shows, we don't really get too many female relationships. We get the kind of female relationships, and it's, I mean, I'm not disparaging it, but generally the relationships we get are the romantic relationships. And we have one of the best on this show with Sarah and Ava, obviously. But it's also really nice to see a couple of women have a real friendship, a real bond. And we so often take it for granted because most of the time we only get to see that between the men on our show. And it's really nice to see two women have a full-fledged adult relationship. And I am looking forward to seeing Astra and Spooner interact in that way. And the only thing that I do hope is that their friendship doesn't take away from the snark and sarcasm that those two are famous for. I think it'll just double up on that, and I look forward to seeing where that goes. And holy cow, I'm pretty much saving the absolute best part of this episode for the end for me. But obviously, we have Gideon in the flesh, and her Terminator-like presentation to the show, coming in obviously fully nude. And I just have to wonder, Amy Pemberton, obviously, from what we've seen of her before, is in pretty darn good shape. But I'm just wondering how far in advance did the writers tell her that her introduction onto the show in the flesh was going to be essentially fully nude, except for a J.J. Abrams type lens flare? Because I have to assume that she probably didn't touch a carb for quite some time heading into shooting of that scene. But holy cow, it was freaking great, and I can't wait to see what Amy Pemberton does with this character. This is about it for me. I just wanted to keep it short and sweet. Wanted to send a voicemail so you guys wouldn't have to read a lengthy email. I am so looking forward to what this season can be. There's so many things that have been opened up with what this show can be and what this season can be based on the circumstances that there are in. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone else has to say about this episode. This has been Perry White, making another deadline, and I'm out.
See, I appreciate, we all appreciate, Carrie, that you send in voicemails. Everybody, we actually prefer voicemails. We love reading emails, but you already listened to us talking for an hour to an hour and a half. We like to take a break and listen to your voices because we get to hear the inflections in the way you speak and where your emotions land instead of us guessing at how we're reading your emails where you want the emotion to be. So it's just nice to hear your voices, and you know, it just becomes it just helps the community more when all our voices are heard, and it's part of the family.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Next up is Dreamweaver with a voicemail.
Hello, Legendaires. Man, it feels like the last season of Legends was only a month ago. Oh wait, that was quick. Well, still good to be back, because let me tell you, after my pained up and down feelings toward last season, this one was a breath of fresh air to watch. I'm going to go ahead and give this episode a rating of 9 bullets to the ceiling out of 10. The only thing that honestly kept this from getting a 10 was there was no real emotional oomph that sent it over the top. There were some good scenes and conversations, but no big standout emotional moments. I needed one good sucker punch to get this even higher. And the plot was a little all over the place instead of being super focused, but I still had a good time. Every character was utilized well. The new stakes the team have being stuck in the past with none of the tech they rely on works really well so far. I laughed out loud multiple times during the episode. There's a chance for new character dynamics to be had, and there are big time travel repercussions already. They made sure in the beginning to straight away let us know that they are stranded. No time couriers, no flashers, no any future tech. Just whatever wit, historical knowledge, and superpower abilities they already have. And I'm glad they really brought up the Time Bureau again, with even a mention back to their big mothership from Season 3, which was never brought up after a few episodes. And the fact that they had literal fail-safes on the time ships. That made me chuckle. And the nod they still gave to Rory here, that he took the courier that was in there for a beer run and just never returned it. That feels right. I was happy to see History Nate back, and now that they're stuck and can't use Gideon like they used to for information, Nate is going to be their best source for the going-ons in the era, seeing as Ava already slipped up. And that gives him purpose again that he's kind of been lacking for a couple seasons. And we're back to having actual historical figures show up in J. Edgar Hoover, though I guess he's not sticking around for long. And that's got to be one of the biggest screw-ups the Legends have gotten themselves into. Because no J. Edgar Hoover means no FBI, and a lot of other things. Ava's reaction was hilarious, and her keeping lists of IOUs along the time was also great. As was then Sarah trying to console her by talking about a honeymoon and mentioning Stabcast and Ava's complete change of disposition. Her switch to realizing she's been preparing her whole life to get away with murder also made me crack up. I think the humor works so well in this episode because 1, there was a good bit of situational humor, and 2, it was going off of things we already know to be true and in character for everyone, using things that have already been established instead of pulling things out of nowhere. All the jokes made complete sense. For maybe the first time, none of the characters bothered me. Gary was good, Bayrod was fine, and I like Spooner and Astra. All was good. Astra's resurrection spell was pretty neat, and a very clever way to get us human Gideon after the Wave Rider has been completely destroyed. Her, Astra, and Spooner being left behind will be an interesting combination. And I guess since they have no tech, the rest of the team has no way to stay in contact since they're splitting up, with the rest of them heading to New York.
Good point.
Be really cool to pull in some old school spy tech to try to communicate, or even see them trying to send telegrams. There's just so much opportunity now for stuff. So Ava and Gary end up bringing up Rule 44, a rule from the Time Bureau about creating a backstory that will work their way out of trouble and explain things to locals. A circus. Create the illusion that there's a circus in town and people will convince themselves to believe that there are any number of weird things going on and that they all make sense. Zari's fashion skills were utilized, A+ to the costumes, even if they never ended up being a circus. I'm okay. The last circus on the show was rough, so an old-timey bank robbery was better. Everyone's accents were interesting. The robbery gang fan just strolling up to Nate and Bayrod, honestly random, but honestly another thing that made me laugh. Ava hating ceilings also had me dying. Honestly, if the humor is going to be like this again all season, you may have to bring back playing the funny quotes again. Love Nate riding on the side of the car. They honestly looked like they were all having a blast. Nate sealed up at least 3 times this episode. It was great. There were only necessary mentions and ramifications from the aliens last season, and no mention of Sarah being one. Even Gary turning into one here at the end to eat Hoover was fine. It was kind of funny in the context. This just feels like a fresh start all around. I was not expecting to learn about the key Constantine left Zari this early, but it opens up to the mansion that's in a pocket dimension, which is a pretty cool nod because this makes it far more in line with the House of Mysteries from the comics, which was Constantine's house, which existed in its own dimension there and could move around. That was, yes, admittedly convenient to have for the Legends to hide, but also didn't expect Zari to stay behind there. But I liked the moment when she realized that she has to deal with her feelings and not try to ignore them like she was earlier in the episode. That did give me a thought that perhaps if this Zari decides to hang out in the mansion to sort out her feelings, maybe even spend some self-care time away in the totem, maybe we'll get Zari 1.0 back in her place. And good thing Bayrod left his only bag of weed gummies there. The 1920s didn't exactly have marijuana readily accessible, so hopefully it's a high time he's forced into some new direction in terms of character growth without it. I feel like that could have been an intentional move on the writer's part.
Perhaps.
The new character mentioned in the Time Bureau manual. Another thing I love, by the way. We know this is Matt Ryan's new character, Gwyn Davies, who is supposedly the father of time travel. His science and experiments sounded like it laid the foundation for actual time travel to happen in the future. This opens up so many doors and cool possibilities in meeting a founder of time travel science. And that could open a door for this, as if what if the Legends end up helping him figure out how to achieve time travel, and thus end up creating the starting point for the Legends' whole journey to begin. They end up fulfilling their name, becoming actual Legends of Tomorrow for helping invent time travel. Or lay the groundwork at least for the Time Masters to be created. Talk about bookending. And him showing up in the manual means that the Time Masters, or at least Rip, knows the history of time travel and that technology, which is a pretty neat detail. Though if that is the case and direction this goes, that gives me major last season vibes. And we haven't gotten any indication or notice yet that this is their last season. I would hope we would have gotten a notice beforehand if it were, or if they'll get one more, maybe even a shorter season, a 10-episode season like Arrow to go out on if they have a next one. Of course, this is just the premiere of Season 7, so I'm just going on a tangent right now, but just thinking about it from a studio and marketing standpoint, it's hard to say right now. Okay, Now, still hard to tell at this point since there weren't really any hints given to as the evil Wave Rider, but there's some theories to throw out just to get them out there. I'm still digging Carrie's theory from the Facebook group about Gideon going evil or becoming an antagonist in her own right to try to fix time her own way, now that she's suddenly flooded with human emotion and maybe seeing how badly the Legends screwed up this time. I'm also throwing into the pot that this could be an alternate version of the Legends, or a Gideon-created version of the Legends from corrupted memories. Maybe she builds her own AI team, and maybe that team without the proclivity for all their zaniness. Or maybe they're finally circling some things back to the Time Masters, or even the Time Bureau days, as we know there were some other time ships, and I still can't accept that every single one of them would have blown up at the vanishing point. Maybe there has been a different team keeping tabs on the Legends this whole time, and now finally decided they did enough to step in and do something before the Legends do something even worse. This could be a whole new team of time travelers we've never seen before. These also could be the Legends from the future, trying to stop some form of calamity that they know happens right now, or trying to stop themselves from returning to the present. Of course, that leads to all kinds of timey-wimey things come into play regarding the Wave Rider itself, because if that would be a future Wave Rider, wouldn't it blowing it up in the past cause a paradox? Or this could be a Wave Rider from the past, the Legends past, since the Wave Rider would be intact to be able to blow herself up in the future. Maybe it's a mission we never saw. But then there's also the fact that you guys are on the Wave Rider. So my money's on the fact that you decided you need to take matters into your own hands, get out of Blue Valley for a bit, and destroy their Wave Rider so as to force the writer's hand into some better Legends writing. And if it was you, it worked. This feels both reminiscent of classic old-school Legends, mixed with everything good about the fun, silly aspects, while also feeling fresh for the show. The premise set up right now is really interesting, and the lack of normal technology and things they, and us, as audience members, have all come to rely on forces new and more innovative situations in writing. I do love the Wave Rider set, but this also means they have to be on location more for shooting, which is always fun. I know it's only the premiere, but if this is any indication for the rest of the season, I am on board again, and excited for these characters, and the history they'll run into, and the stories. There's a lot of figures in the 20s they could run into. F. Scott Fitzgerald, Charles Lindbergh, Babe Ruth if they're headed to New York, old school Yankees game anyone? Anyway, I'll wrap it up for this week. Until next time, your friend Dreamweaver.
You know, last week I changed her name from Dreamweaver to Wordweaver. This week she is Detail Weaver. Holy cow, that girl has got a memory for details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome thought. I love that she worked us into her story, that we're on our own Wave Rider. That means we're from yet a different time dimension, whatever, on our own ship. That is cool.
That's right.
Let's get some fan fiction written about that. I like that idea. So the one thing she brought up I want to touch on, we didn't really talk about Gary in this episode because he was a big part of it, and he wasn't annoying at all. He fit right in with the team. The team seemed like they were accepting of him and respecting him as just being a regular member for a change, which I really appreciated. And even, like she said, he changed into his alien form, and that whole sequence, I thought it was actually really funny because everybody else was grossed out by it, but he's like, I don't really want to, but human flesh tastes so good, and then he got right into it. I thought it was actually a really fun scene. I thought the alien in 1920s Texas would have just been way, like, just completely not fit in, and they made it work, and it was a fun scene.
Yeah, it was.
It was, yeah.
Awesome feedback, guys. Thank you for being part of our Season 7 premiere. The rest of you guys, let's get this season going. Season 7. Send us feedback. This is what you gotta do.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to tomorrowslegendspodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter @Tomorrow's Legends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
All right. That's Season 7 premiere. Can you believe this, guys? Like, we're 7 seasons in now of Legends. I had no idea the show was going to go this long.
I know. I didn't either. It's pretty crazy. I had 2 kids during this show.
You've had 2 kids? We started this in 2016.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. That's crazy. I did not think we would get this kind of longevity out of it. And we're still going along, and we got X-Force with us now, so it's awesome.
Yep, indeed.
Awesome
Pleasure
stuff.
being here.
So, Harley, did you hear our, was it, I guess 2 episodes ago, have you heard Dreamweaver? She took over for X-Force when he was away.
No, I haven't. I'm not that far on the Stargirl podcast. I'm caught up on the show, just not the podcast.
Okay, well, you'll have to let us know how you thought she did.
I'm sure she did amazing, and I am looking forward to hearing her thoughts.
Yeah, she did a great job. So good stuff, everybody. Well, everyone else, have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back in your ears with Stargirl next week. So this is all I got. The Flash is signing off.
And I get to sign off again. This is Harley Quinn, and I'm out.
This is X-Force 11. So say we all.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.